Ah, what a lad. And today I'm joined by one of Scotland's finest lads you'll ever meet. He's played rugby all around the world, including 137 games for Edinburgh. He played over 50 in the UK for Gloucester. He played over 50 in France for Clermont. And he's played plenty for the Shining Arcs in Japan. Not only that, he's also captained his country more than any other player and is the second top point scorer for his beloved Scotland. And also he has recently just called time on his very special rugby career. So there's no better time to get this lad on. He is the absolute champion lad himself. Greig Laidlaw, welcome, mate.
Mate, what an introduction. I think we should just stop there, right?
There we go. Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah. No, it's a pleasure to join you, mate. And yeah, as I said, it's great to be on and looking forward to the chat.
Mate, stoked to have you on. Like everyone I've spoken to about you has pretty much said, like, oh, what a lad he is. You need to get him on the podcast as soon as you can. So great to finally get you.
Yeah, mate, it's great to be here. Yeah, I'm having fun. I'm still over here in Japan. Currently, at the moment, I'm staying on a little bit longer. Most of the foreign lads now I've shut off back home, but I've got two of my kids are in school over here, so we decided to stay for another month and keep them in school.
Fair enough. How old are your kids?
We've got three boys, 8, 6, and the little man's only 9 months. So we're still in the midst of the tough stuff, as well as coming out of the woods at the other side.
Yeah, how have they all found Japan?
Oh, mate, they've done really well, huh? Like, we were a bit worried, certainly about my oldest. He's pretty full on, loves his sport and stuff. He's pretty competitive, so I wonder where he got that. But no, they've done real well, and it's honestly been a real eye opener for both Rachel, my wife, and myself. Our oldest, he's speaking like Japanese and stuff like that, mate. So it's awesome to see, and kids are truly amazing, huh?
Yeah, it is crazy. They adjust way better than us, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They just sort of get on with it, and they've got Japanese friends and what have you. So they don't seem to bat an eyelid, which is great.
Yeah, and how are you feeling? Obviously, you've called time on your career. Footy is done. How are you feeling about all that?
Relief, I reckon.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of been on my mind for a long time. And I think, obviously, when I signed in Japan, I knew I was probably going to end up, finish my career over here anyway. But I was having real thoughts about it before we even started this season, and I wasn't really sure I wanted to play. So it's more relief, man. I've definitely been ready for it, and I'm almost ready for the next sort of step, in my life, in many ways, as well as my sort of professional career. And I'm along at the clubhouse now, which is a couple of minutes from my house, and already there's a couple of boys, downstairs, and they've been doing a bit of running and stuff, and I'm just like, thank goodness I do not need to do that anymore.
How is your body? Is your body sweet, or is it just mentally you just feel like you're done?
Man, my body's all right. I'll get the odd aches and pains like everybody that's played pro rugby or any rugby for a stretch of time. My back mainly being the biggest issue, but more mentally, I think it comes to the point. Like, I didn't mind the games and stuff. This year I quite enjoyed the games and playing, but it's everything in between, from pre-season weights, as you'll know, mate. When you start thinking about that stuff more than the rugby itself, you know that your time's coming to an end. Yeah,
and especially in Japan, because pre-season's longer than, like 4 times longer than the season. It's pretty much all training, and you don't get too many games at the end of it.
No, you don't. You don't get that the sort of good part of the end, or certainly for an extended period of time. And we got pumped this season and pre-season as well, like down in we went down south somewhere like in the heat, end of August, September, and I'm just thinking, thank goodness this is the last time I'm going to have to do this.
Yeah, but a lot of people, even when their body's feeling okay, you get to the end and you get another contract in front of you. You see all the numbers, you see the yen, and you're like, oh, do I go one more? But you didn't get there. You weren't tempted to go one more. You'd had enough completely.
I'd had enough, mate. Like, my agent and stuff over here as well. He's like, oh, you should, keep playing. You're playing well, and I was like, look, mate, I've made peace with this. I'm ready for the next thing, and I'm done.
Yeah, fair enough. It sounds like you guys have to do 1,000 Malcolms or something. OTD Black was saying you're right into them.
Mate, I'm not because I'm so close to the ground, mate. I'm all right. I can get down any down and ups, mate. I'm all good with that stuff. But anything to do with a walk bike or a lifting heavy weights, mate. Well, certainly probably me and Dots. We're out of there.
Oh, classic. And how do you find like the lifestyle in Japan? You sort of touched on it, but I'd imagine you would have adapted pretty well. You look like you'd be a good onsen man.
Onsens are good, mate. We're quite lucky where we're based with NTT. We're kind of in Tokyo Bay, so we're kind of stuck out of the way a little bit. So it wouldn't be like hugely busy. But the culture's it's awesome, huh? They've got a lot of respect. Anybody that's travelled to Japan will sort of know that, and that's probably some of the stuff that's certainly been lost a little bit. It's certainly back in the UK, I reckon, and stuff like that. So I love that aspect of it. We talked about kids briefly early on there. It's real safe for the kids and stuff. When we first got here, like there's loads of young kids like wandering about on their own and walking to the school bus, and my wife and I were kind of like looking at each other like, what is happening here? Where's all the grown-ups? Where's all the parents? But that's just how it is, It's so safe. The kids, from 5, 6 year old, they kind of just cut about and get on the trains, get on buses on their own. It's fairly incredible.
Yeah, it is crazy. And what's been the hardest thing to sort of adapt to? What are you looking forward to getting back to Scotland and having or being able to do again?
It's definitely the language, mate. That's probably the most difficult thing, and not so much here at the club, because certainly at this club we've got 2 full-time translators. So in terms of the rugby stuff, it's pretty easy. But everyday life, mate, that can be a tough challenge. Whether that's you going to the bank or the supermarket, or whether you got to take one of the kids to the doctor or whatever. It can be tough work, mate. And there's some days you think, oh, let's just throw the towel in and move back to Scotland, where it's you don't have any of these hassles.
Yeah, mate, I remember when you first move over there, it's just so overwhelming, everything, like the doctor trying to set up your car, your internet, even going to the supermarket for the first time. It's just so overwhelming. You're not sure what the hell's going on.
Nah, mate, it's tough, and then you have to do any of the trips to like City Hall or anything like that, mate, to do residence cards, and oh, mate, you're like standing in lines for 30, 40 minutes and you've no idea what's happening. It's good times.
Yeah, they don't mind a queue, eh? They love lining up,
mate,
even if they're not sure what it's for.
They do not mind a queue. They do not mind a queue, mate. Where was I the other day? I was somewhere the other day, mate. And we were like, there was this ridiculous queue, and I said to my wife, I says, we're not standing here, I'm out of here. It's like if you go along, because we're only one stop from like Disneyland
true.
Tokyo.
Yeah.
Mate, you go along there, it's absolute chaos.
Yeah. It's like the longer the queue, the more likely they are to line up. They love standing in them.
Yeah, they don't seem to mind, like, I don't know if it's a cultural thing or a respect thing, but they've no issues at all. Like you're talking a good couple of hours when you go along to Disneyland. So yeah, fair play to them, but it's not for me.
Nah, not for me, not at all. But so the next move for you is to move back to Scotland. Have you got plans on what you're going to do? You're going to get into the coaching? I'd imagine you'd be a wizard like your cousin.
Well, yeah, my cousin's done a good job, to be fair to him, which is great to see. But so I'm signed on for actually next season out here, in terms of I'm going to go straight onto the staff with the same team.
Oh, true. Oh, sweet.
On the coaching side. So I've had a sort of, not a burning desire, but I love the game, mate, and it's been something I've thought about long and hard, and essentially that's where I forged my career, is so that speed of thought. And I was never the quickest, sadly, but I was always pretty quick in the top 2 inches, thankfully for me. So I've always enjoyed that sort of side of the game, and getting the best out of people, and also a couple of different avenues like that, sort of leadership, performance under pressure. That stuff really sort of intrigues me. So short term, we're going to stay in Japan one more season, and then I'll see what happens after that.
Mate, how good's that? What role exactly will you be doing?
So I'm going to be down as assistant coach. I'm going to be working with a defence coach for the most part. There's a couple of guys that look after the attack here, so I'll do the defence alongside him. I actually done a bit of player coaching this year. I took charge of the backs defence here anyway this year, so I sort of had not one foot in each camp, but I was making that progression.
That would have been hard with Oteri in your line.
He was one of the good guys, mate. He just chops people down and gets out of there. He made my life nice and easy, mate. He's been good to work with. He's a good man. So, and then I'm hoping to do a fair bit of the skills as well. I reckon we need to, certainly the team that I'm at, we need to upskill a fair bit, and I've got hopefully a lot of ideas that I can really help in and around that. And I'm hoping it's a good place to start my sort of coaching journey, because like the Japanese guys, as you probably know, mate, they're awesome in terms of like their work ethic and stuff, but sometimes they just don't know almost where to channel that energy. So hopefully I can help out on that front.
Yeah, and then what's the dream for you? Like, where do you see coaching taking you? Is it like an international gig with Scotland, or following your brother to potentially a Super Rugby team over the next few years?
Oh, listen, I think my heart my heart will definitely tell you I'd love to coach Scotland one day, but that's a long way off. Obviously, I think I'm a big believer you've got to go and earn your stripes elsewhere, and earn your stripes as a coach. Clearly, if you've been a half decent player, it doesn't automatically qualify you're going to be a great coach. So go away, learn as much as I can, work hard. I think that experience thing is massive. So working in different countries, whether that's New Zealand or Aussie, somewhere like that. I think somebody like Clark Laidlaw, who's my cousin, for anybody that doesn't know, came down to New Zealand a fair few number of years ago now. I couldn't tell you how many. He's done a great job, and I know he loves it down there. And I caught up with him just a couple of months back there in Hong Kong.
That's right,
I went down to Hong Kong Sevens with NTT here, and I was able to catch up with Clarkey, and we were able to squeeze in a couple of beers as well, which was quite nice.
Mate, I could imagine you two in Hong Kong together would have been an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, he was a lot worse than me, I'll tell you that much, which I was surprised about.
Oh, good stuff. Well, anyway, one thing I do always like to do is sort of go through the guest journey from the start, and we've had a few Scottish lads on, Finlay Christie, Scott Steele, obviously your cousin Clarkey, but I do would like to hear your story, mate, from the start. What was it? What were you like as a wee Scottish lad growing up?
I was into everything, mate. It was pretty much like no computers for us, that was for sure. Everything was outside. Any ball we'd get a hold of, rugby balls, footballs, tennis, golf. We played a lot. That mainly, we were pretty. Clark's brother Scott, they were a bit older than me, but I'd scrap about with them for a little bit. And then Clark and Scott, I've got a younger brother, Chris, who's even younger than me, so quite a big age gap. And I was closer to him, so I spent a fair bit of time with him as well. But so we grew up in a small town called Jedburgh down the Scottish borders. It's only about 4,000 people, I think, at the time when I was growing up. So not a huge amount happening, mate, down there, apart from playing a bit of footy. And at that time, it was like, I guess it was starting to change then even, but traditionally that was like rugby heartland in Scotland. It's a sort of working class, part of the world, and that was, very much a big sort of part of the community, down there in Jed. So, yeah, mate, that's really where it started. My dad was a big part of that. He was my first coach down at the mini rugby there, and then essentially just progressed from there.
Were you good? Were you a good player at a young age? You're obviously competitive and, by all accounts, into everything. But were you a good wee player?
Yeah, I'm obviously. I think I had something about me, mate. I think certainly wasn't anywhere near being the finished article in my early days. I probably always lacked that top end speed, which is, would sadly for me, which would have been lovely, as you'll know, mate. That always helps. But so I probably figured that out at quite a young age, and so I thought, I'm going to have to, if I'm going to go all the way, I need a sort of point of difference. So that's going to have to be, skill sets, getting stuck in, being smart around the game as well. So I was able to lean on that side of my game probably from a really young age, which I guess really helped me come the back end.
Yeah, what age do you think you felt like that, like you could control a game with the top 2 inches?
Yeah, and I think once I probably started pushing through into the Edinburgh team, I guess.
Oh yeah.
I was up at Edinburgh for a couple of seasons before I got any great amount of game time, and I ended up playing for a club team up in Edinburgh as well. And I actually played a fair bit of rugby at 10 as well.
Oh yeah.
And I think I reckon that's helped me over the years, and just it's having that appreciation, I guess, in many ways. What's it like to be one channel further out, and what's happening and what can help nines, and vice versa. So I reckon it sort of stemmed from there, and obviously people around about you, mate, as well, as you'll know from your career, is there's such a huge influence. Certainly when you're in the younger days, you're coming out of the academy, and I had Chris Patterson at the time at Edinburgh.
Oh yeah.
Over 100 caps for Scotland, and he was in many ways probably ahead of his time. He was really professional, great goal kicker, and somebody that really spent time and energy on his craft, and then also somebody like Mike Blair as well, who was a great halfback at Edinburgh, played a lot of times for Scotland and British and Irish Lions. So I was able to I was willing to learn and understand of these types of players, which really helped me massively.
And were you always a goal kicker? Like, did you start that at a young age?
Yeah, I did. I don't know where that sort of came from. I think I just enjoyed it.
Yeah.
When I was younger, get a tee, and it was probably boredom a lot of times, mate. Just get yourself along to the closest field and bang a few goals over, and it stood me in pretty good stead. Yeah,
mate. Well, obviously it's been a big part of your career all the way through, so that ability to kick goals and kick them under pressure, because obviously you've kicked some massive ones throughout your journey. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough work as well. It's people always say to you, you look so calm and this and that, and I'm not so sure I felt like that for the most part. You talk about that relief finishing up your career and stuff. That's certainly a part of it. I'm not going to miss. I'm not going to lie to you. Well, I would have thought the opposite, because you're right. You always did look so confident lining up a kick, and you got them more often than not. So it's interesting to hear that you weren't always that confident lining up.
Well, I mean, whether it was, I'm not saying I wasn't confident, but yeah. I think I had confidence in myself through a process, I guess, I came to develop, because I think that talked a little bit about performance under pressure, and for me, it comes back to the process, and all the things about staying in the moment. So I came up with a system essentially that I had in my head, and I worked out over time, and a few key words I would say to myself, and essentially that came up my kicking routine, and that essentially you had to block everything else out and get into the routine and go through with it. And I guess that's the part of mental strength. You need to be a really good goal kicker, in my opinion.
Mate, there's a good bit of advice for any goal kickers out there. Nice and early. Anyone listening to that, go kick some goals with that. That is some good stuff. But did you ever feel like your size was ever going to hold you back? Obviously, most little guys get told at some point in their career that they're going to be too small to make it as a professional footy player. Have you got any stories like that?
Yeah, I remember I was sort of trying to push through into the Edinburgh team in my younger days, and I would always you'd always do the gym like with the team and stuff, train, and then I'd get sent back into the gym pretty much after training to I had to go and do extra weights or whatever, and you've got to get bigger, you've got to get stronger, and potentially I had to get stronger. And again, certainly when I was coming through, it wasn't the younger days, but professionalism had been about for a fair bit, but I probably didn't take that side of it too seriously right at the very start. And certainly in terms of the gym and stuff, I just loved playing rugby, and I was like, we've got to do this sort of gym stuff on the side as well. So, but I think again, we talked about people that influence you and stuff, and if you're in a good system and you sort of realise that, all right, that this is actually part of the job, and I have to actually make some gains in this sort of part of it as well, and you pick up good things of coaches throughout the years, mate. That's what I've always found. I think some coaches aren't great, but a lot of the times you can still pick things up off them, and Scott Johnson was quite big on that side of the game as well, in terms of your sort of strength work, your speed work as well. And I always sort of remember him. He pushed me quite hard in that area as well, which I do think really helped me in the end also.
So how did you get your first crack with Edinburgh? Like, what was your pathway to the top team?
again, I think we'd picked up a couple of injuries because I talked about Mike Blair before, and he was sort of starting Scotland or halfback at the time, really good player, and I think it was Phil Godman. He played 10 and he got injured. We never had too much sort of strength and depth, and I was a half decent rugby player, and so the next minute I sort of get pushed into that 10 role, and it was almost a case of getting our sort of best players on the field at one point.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how I sort of forced my way in, really, and then I sort of kept my place in that sort of 10 jersey for a sort of couple of seasons. It wasn't then, and then eventually sort of moved into 9. I think Mike was still at the club, and then Mike played, I played, and then Mike eventually moved on, and I sort of progressed into that slot. But we had a great run. That one of the years I played 10, we made it to the semis of the European Cup.
True.
The Champions Cup. It was, and we were a small team in comparison. We had like Racing Metro in our pool, as it was in their days. It was like 4 teams in the pool, the old school one.
Yeah.
And so it was tough work, but we beat them both home and away. And then we lost to Ulster over in the Aviva Stadium, Lansdowne Road, in the semi-final there. Not by many points. Sure. So yeah, some great memories looking back to that.
Mate, the glory days. And you obviously probably had a few Scottish Kiwis over there playing for you at the time. Anyone that you remember, or any good stories about any of those lads?
I can't remember right at the start if we had too many kilted Kiwis as they're known in the Scotland setup, but tell you who was there, mate, and I actually spoke to him the other day. It was Benny Artinga.
Oh, that's, yeah.
I'm showing my age a little bit now, but sure. Benny, mate, I was ashamed because Benny, his body was pretty busted up, but I could tell by watching this guy, like, oh crikey, this boy's got a bit about him.
Yeah.
And to be fair to Benny, he worked his socks off, and he actually got himself in really good nick. I think it was going into the second year, and sadly he got injured again, and he never played too much. But yeah, he was probably one of the sort of first guys I came across. And then boys in the actual Scotland team that I played with, I was thinking about this earlier, was probably Shawnee Maitland.
Oh yeah,
Shawnee's a great guy.
Yeah,
really enjoyed spending time with him. He's real laid back.
Yeah,
and then the other one would be the hard sauce mate, John Hardy.
Oh, John Hardy, surely you've got some hard sauce yarns. Jeez, what a character.
Mate, he's a character, Hards, mate. I remember once, mate, it was like, I think it was after a Scotland test, and we went back to the hotel, and I think it was like, right lads, we've got another test, and I think it must have been the following week, so it was like, come down to the team, we'll have a couple of beers, and that'll be it, sort of thing. Next minute, like, Hards appears, and he's like sitting there with this suspicious big jug, which obviously looked like water and ice, which he told the doctor it's just like iced water, mate. And obviously he's sitting drinking I think it was like gin and tonic or something like that, and he's getting charged into that, mate, and having a few. But yeah, he's certainly a great character, mate, and he put his body on the line when he played with him anyway, that was for sure.
Yeah. So then how did you get your crack at Scotland? Obviously you're playing well for Edinburgh. Was it after that successful year with Edinburgh where you guide them to the semi-final that you get the call up?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much off the back of that. So we had Andy Robinson as head coach at Edinburgh, the former England forwards coach, who was a really good coach, actually. He was somebody I learned a lot about the game off when he came into Edinburgh, and then he done a really good job at Edinburgh. I think we finished second in the league, and then he took on the Scotland job off the back of that. So it was kind of organically, I guess. He'd worked with me at Edinburgh. I was still playing half decent at Edinburgh, and then I sort of made that transition into the Scotland squad, and eventually pushed it into the team from there.
Mate, and talk to me about what it's like playing for Scotland. Obviously, mate, I love the national anthem. The passion you guys sing that with is next level, and sold out Murrayfield. Talk to me about what it's like playing there in front of a sold out stadium. Oh,
mate, there's nothing better for a passionate Scotsman like myself, and I'd be real patriotic. And I think I'll take you sort of into match day. Like, match day in Murrayfield is really special because normally drive. Edinburgh's not a big city, so you end up sort of driving through the heart of the city on the team bus, and you can almost feel and sense the atmosphere on the way to the stadium. Normally it's pissing the rain as well, but that's just part of the package when you come to Murrayfield. And then listen, all the fans are like, close to the bus, and then when you arrive at the stadium, you normally get piped round by the bagpipes, and it's obviously like culturally that's a big part for us as well. And I think the Scottish people they're really passionate about their sport. They obviously love winning, like everybody does. Sometimes that's tough, playing for Scotland. But that's just the way it is, mate. And it's so special to run out of Murrayfield. So special to have been able to captain Scotland, over my career as well. It's such a privilege for me. All I wanted to do was win and do a good job of leading the boys. So, yeah, great memories looking back. Some tough ones as well. But that again, that's just part of playing for Scotland. Mate. Essentially, we're a small country. In my opinion, we do a fairly good job for most of the time.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned captaincy. How did that role come in? Did you always feel like you're a captain, or how did the opportunity to captain your country come about?
I don't know if I ever felt, like a captain sort of material. I'm like my sort of mannerism. I'd be fairly introverted, for the most part. I wouldn't. But I think I've always been really driven, and I think that's probably where it really came from. And that sort of will to succeed, the will to win. I don't like getting beaten. So I think it kind of stemmed from there essentially, and I think that connection with my teammates about driving my teammates forward, trying to make everybody better, not just myself. I think that's where it came from, and I was always willing to challenge, I guess, and I always it came from the right place, and it's certainly my younger days, maybe that didn't come across the right way, but like everybody else, I'm sure you'll be the same, and you've maybe mellowed a fair bit over the years, but certainly in my younger years, I wasn't scared of challenging people and shying away from that.
Oh, mate, what a captain you sound like. Were you someone who was always getting into sort of biffo on the training field? I feel like your competitiveness would always be winding people up on the training field, or ending up in scuffles or stuff.
Oh, there's a couple over the years, mate. But I mean, you never like to be the sort of training hero. That was for sure. I was never one of them. But
yeah,
there was a couple of moments. There's a couple of moments with Finn actually over the years.
Finn Russell.
Yeah, I mean, because he's like we're two different people.
Yeah.
That's probably, I reckon that's probably why we get on so well. But straight away after training, he'd normally just take the piss out of me and tell me I was pretty grumpy. But that's normally how it would end up, and would laugh it off. But Finn was so laid back, and sometimes, certainly when he first came into that setup, I would find it quite difficult to take. And I want to, sort of keep the pump on him, keep him under pressure to perform, and because he's in such a pivotal role. But obviously, I've come to learn he's such a great talent, and over the years, we had some good fun.
So, what does that look like? Is this when he's trying to make a play when it's not on, and then you're just absolutely spraying him, or what's it sort of look like?
Yeah, that's normally how it would have went. Finn would be trying something absolutely ridiculous, and he'd sort of just shrug it off, and here's me, I'm trying to drive standards and tell everybody else what to do, and he's meant to be the main man outside of me, and he's on his own track. But as you'll know, mate, that's the beauty about leadership. It's some people you've just got to let them go and go down that path, and other people, whether it's you show them love or you give them a kick up the arse, you've got to find that balance. Yeah,
mate, 100%. Oh, what a captain. But talk to me about the Six Nations. Obviously a competition we don't get to see too much of over here, but at the moment I've been loving watching the quality of the Six Nations. Shit, it's a good competition. What's it like playing in it? Obviously 5 tough games, no finals, it's just week in, week out, just into it.
Mate, it's awesome. It's an awesome experience. I reckon if anybody's not been down to it or not experienced it, from the Southern Hemisphere or whatever, I'd really say get yourselves up, come and have a look and experience it in person if you can, because I think it's epic, mate, in terms of just the different atmospheres you go to, whether that's Scotland travelling down to Wales, and there's mate, there's like rugby clubs up and down the country that they're jumping on buses and filling buses and driving 7-8 hours down to Wales and what have you. So I think it's as much as it's about the rugby and the whole spectacle of it all and the history. I think it's also about the other side as well. It's about people going down. They'll have Scotsmen will have friends down in Wales from over the years or over in Ireland. It's the catching up. It's the game day experience, and I think it's really unique. And the rivalries are only seem to be getting bigger at the moment in time because the rugby's been so tight as well. And it's great to see likes of France coming back to the party as well. Like they used to be years ago, and the games are so tight, and it's almost, Italy have made some gains as well, which is great to see. But I think anybody else at the moment, I think just about anybody can win the comp as well, which makes it so exciting.
Yeah, mate, that Netflix documentary is going to be a real interesting one. Watching it from behind the scenes, shame it wasn't done a couple of years earlier, and we could witness your captaincy on the big screen.
Yeah, mate, that will be interesting when it comes out. Again, as I sort of said before, that sort of introvert side to me, I'd potentially been a bit worried about it. And I know there was a fair bit of sort of blowback, I believe, from I think from a few teams, that obviously Ireland and everybody essentially, Ireland, they're going well, number one team in the world. They've got, aspirations to go and win the World Cup, and they're saying, what's going on here? There's people coming behind the scenes a year out from the World Cup, and then I think because, Andy Farrell was saying that, and then obviously Owen Farrell, England, he's saying, well, if they're not doing it, we're not doing it. And but I think they got most of it over the line, and I think hopefully it's a really good thing for the game, and it's going to grow the game, and without getting too far behind the scenes and obviously letting away secrets. I guess that's what everybody's worried about. But I mean, I don't know what's like, because you like down in New Zealand, you'll be able to tell me more. It's like, you Kiwi guys, you seem to be pretty open. That's certainly what I've found over the years, and I don't know, would like the Kiwi teams, would they be open to something like that as well, like going forward, do you reckon?
Yeah, we've actually got a documentary crew filming the Crusaders at the moment, just behind the scenes. But it's still a little bit like you guys, or like the Irish and the English. Everyone's sort of looking over their shoulder. What are you actually filming here? What are you going to take out of it? So we're not there yet, but it's going to get there, like sooner rather than later. Like it's going to be the normal. You've seen the success that like the Formula One and stuff have had from their Netflix documentaries. So. It's going to happen. It's just once everyone starts to getting a bit more comfortable with it all and trust what's actually going on and what it's actually for the game.
That's the big one, isn't it? It's that trust. And I think when the Netflix stuff was all sort of coming and they'd signed contracts, I don't think they had any power to do any of the editing or anything like that. They weren't sure what was going to be getting showed. So, but they'll do it in the right way, because all the other ones, they've been epic, whether it's the Formula One or the tennis. And I think for sports fans, it gives you a great insight to actually, what goes into, what you see on whether it's race day or match day, and the huge amount of work that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, 100%. Looking forward to watching it. But talk to me about the 2 Rugby World Cups. You obviously got to go to both of them. One in the UK, one in Japan. Obviously, the one in the UK. Didn't probably finish how you like. Want to talk to me around that World Cup for you and what you remember about it?
I remember we had a great time together. That was my sort of abiding memory of the teamship. I think everybody was on the same page. We had a real good connection, sort of going throughout the team. Something that I was really big on as well, and we were really lucky. We were able to work with Owen Eastwood. You probably heard of Owen, and that whole thing around. Connections, your sort of belongings. So I really enjoyed that sort of part of it. And then getting more into the rugby, I think we played well for the most part. But the big one around 2015 is that I've been asked a lot of times about is obviously the quarter final against the Aussies, and it was funny actually because just last week I'd done a little thing here in Japan with Will Genia and Matt Giddo as well.
Oh yeah,
who were also, they were sort of winding me up and saying, it doesn't matter. We had different opportunities to win the game anyway. So,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was certainly a strange one, and one that I do think about every now and again.
Yeah. So what actually happened for the listeners who don't remember the moment? Talk me through it from your view.
Yeah,
You're obviously right in the mix. You
yeah.
obviously
So we were.
sprang Joubert.
I couldn't, mate. He was off the field that quickly. I couldn't. So we were winning the game. Yeah, there
Yeah.
wasn't long left. Like a couple of minutes tops, and we had a line out, and there was an overthrow, and we've somebody's touched it from a Scottish side, and then one of the Scottish boys has been in front of the ball. He's ended up, it's one of the ones that's fell straight into the breadbasket, and he's just caught it, but ended up giving a penalty away. But what's actually happened is one of the Aussie boys has touched it before our players caught it. So I think it should have been a scrum to Australia. And
Yeah.
obviously we had a sort of chance to defend our lead with a couple of minutes left. But as it were, Craig Joubert, he awarded a penalty to Australia, and credit to Bernard Foley, I think it was. He knocked over a nice kick, and we couldn't rein them in from there. So
Oh,
the rest is
mate.
history, as they say.
Heartbreak. You would have backed yourself to hold them out for those last 2 minutes if you awarded the scrum.
Oh, definitely, mate.
Yeah.
But, I
Oh,
think it was one of the games like there's such a big momentum shift. Like in the game, we picked up like an intercept and stuff, and you could almost tell that the Aussie boys were gone. But we gave them that opportunity with the penalty, and the rest is history, as they say. And Craig Joubert sort of he sort of ran off the field for anybody that's not seen it. But I'm sure most people have. But it's one of the ones, mate. It is what it is. You can't. What can you do about it now? Not very
yeah.
much.
Yeah, mate. Just reminisce about the times you went so close, which could have been you guys in the final, really, against the All Blacks. And who knows, you might have won that one.
Yeah, but I won it, mate.
Would have been a
Definitely.
different story. And then what about the World Cup in Japan?
Oh, it was great from like something completely different, in
Mm,
terms of the game, and rather than just whether it's playing in Europe or wherever, Aussie or New Zealand. I think it was great for the different country to take it on. I think we never played well at all. There's probably a couple of different reasons around that. So it's always hard because first and foremost you're going there to do a job, and the good times off the field, they sort of fall into place after you do your job on the field. So it's always
mm,
a difficult one. And I don't know, we came out here quite early. We were based down in Nagasaki, and whether it was, we trained obviously down there in the heat. We pushed ourselves pretty hard, and whether it was too hard, that's potentially it was, because we just never fired any shots. We never got going at all against Ireland in the first game. Well beaten, beat Samoa, and then obviously for the people that were watching that, Japan had a sort of lot of momentum, behind them in that competition, and they beat Ireland as well. So
mm.
it's full credit to Japan, and they beat us on the day as well. And again, we just never really fired any shots. We're maybe a little bit unsure of who we were as a team at that point in time, and yeah, so it was a difficult one to take, because obviously I knew I was going to finish up after that World Cup as well.
Mm.
My sort of time had come to an end, and I was keen to move on to the next sort of challenge. So yeah, it was a difficult one for me to take personally, but hopefully there's some boys that are left in that squad now heading into the World Cup this year in France, and hopefully the team are in a better spot mentally, and they can all get on the same page, and because they're going to have to, they're in a very tough pool again this time around.
Yeah, oh, that's a shame. No fairy tale finish. But was there a game that was post-bowl cancelled which cost you? Something around that? Or did you guys not get to play a game? Or what happened there?
Nah, no, yeah, it was a close one. So what happened was there was a typhoon coming in
That's right.
before we played Japan. So it was coming in.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
I think we were playing on the Saturday. I think it was we were playing, and the typhoon was like coming in on the Friday
Oh,
at some
yeah,
point.
that's right.
So we were sort of holed up in the hotel for the whole day. So obviously, traditionally, like you do your team run, captain's run the day before.
Yeah.
So it was literally locked down in a hotel. This thing's coming to hit whatever. So if it stays around till the Saturday, obviously we can't play. So if it passes through quickly, potentially we can still play the game. So we ended up doing like captain's run, walking through in the hotel in the team room. So and we never knew the game was on until the morning of the game. So
Oh,
it
true.
was, yeah, but it was a bizarre. It was a bizarre setup as well, and I wasn't actually captain of that World Cup either. But then Greig had asked me to captain that game as well. So yeah, it was a difficult one. It was a difficult one for me personally, and for whatever reason for the team as well. So hopefully they can learn, mate, and move on.
Be interesting. And you mentioned the World Cup this year. How do you think Scotland are going to go? It's obviously, like you said, such a close competition when you look at it. Like, there's so many teams that could win it on paper. Who are you sort of predicting, and where are you thinking Scotland are going to finish?
Mate, Scotland are going to have to play really well. Probably, well, twice would be really good. But definitely once they're going to have to play, to their full potential, to either tip over an island or tip over a South Africa. But to essentially get out of the pool, they're definitely going to have to win one of them. So, yeah, Tonga's in that pool as well. So, and they've got some freakish players in there as well. I mean, I think Scotland will have too much because they've been together a long time. They've got a bit of cohesion in the group, but Scotland have got some real powerful players, some strike runners, whether it's Duhan van der Merwe, Sione Tuipulotu there in the midfield that have sort of really came in and I guess complemented some of the other players we've got and their friends, Hoggies, and Blair Kinghorn's done a good job as well. He's been dangerous when he's been coming on. So I think now we've got enough firepower. If we don't get any injuries, we've got to get some luck around that. Don't get any injuries and then really perform, when it matters. That last World Cup, we never done that. We performed poorly when we needed to perform. So, the boys, I guess, they've got it. That's the challenge for them this time around. When it kicks off against South Africa for that 80 minutes, you've got to perform to the potential. And they've got to tip one of their teams to get out of the pool.
Yeah, that is a brutal pool. That is a tough one. So who are you expecting to be the hardest to beat in the whole competition? Who's your money on?
I reckon Australia have got a good chance.
Do you? Shit.
Yeah, well, I do
Bolted.
because they're in the right side of the draw for starters. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a World Cup draw so imbalanced this time around. And I think you look at like the consecutive amount of games you're going to have to get up on, whether that's you look at France or New Zealand, South Africa, Ireland, whoever. You're going to have to win a lot of games against a lot of good teams. Whereas that other side of the draw, they've not got that as much, so they're going to have to really perform twice, 3 times, and on that other side of the draw, that figure is almost double. So it's and I think something that Eddie Jones has done well over the years is that it's like that shock and awe factor, isn't it? He comes in. He gets people going pretty quickly in the right direction. I think he's obviously real passionate about Australia, and I think similar to Scotland in many ways, Australia, if they get a bit of luck around injuries, they get everybody fit at the right time. I think they can be a dangerous team as well.
Mate, I wouldn't have picked that. The Aussies to win the Rugby World Cup. You heard it here first.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I just think there's a few sort of stars aligning for them, and they need a little bit of luck around. As I said, some of the players, being fit. But if they do that, they're certainly on the right side of the draw for it. Yeah,
mate, it's going to be some Rugby World Cup. I'm looking forward to it. But let's get back to your career. The move to Gloucester. Why'd you move to Gloucester? What was that all about?
Opportunity, I think, mate. At the time, I'd been up at Edinburgh for a fair amount of time, and Gloucester really appealed to me because, in many ways, probably because of where I grew up in Scotland, like a sort of small rugby town, and I sort of felt Gloucester had that connection with the town and really well supported, almost like an old school rugby club in many ways. And then when I met Alex Brown at the time, and he'd been an ex-player, he was sort of the team manager at the time, and I really sort of liked what he had to say. He's a good rugby man, and as soon as I sort of met him, to be fair to him and the setup at the time, they made a good impression on me, and that was it, man. I just took the opportunity, and I really sort of had in my mind that I really wanted to try and get out of Scotland at some point and go and play somewhere else and experience something different.
And how'd you find the English Premiership? How did that compare?
Mate, that was awesome. as well, because at the time we were playing in, sort of had a few, well, it's now called the URC, so the South African teams have now joined it, but when I was playing it was just Italians, Welsh, Scottish and Irish. But it was good, but like it wasn't too well supported in terms of, a fan base and stuff like that. Certainly us at Edinburgh, we played inside Murrayfield at the time, so you'd probably pick up 5,000-6,000 at a game, mate. So that was tough work. And then, when I went down to Gloucester, and not even Gloucester, like going away to the away stadiums for Gloucester v Bath or Bristol, whoever it was, like really well supported. Any Gloucester home games, 14,000, 15,000 sellouts for the most part, and just fantastic atmospheres. And I think that really sort of drives your sort of performance personally as well. You feel as though you got to perform week in, week out, and I definitely really enjoyed it, and certainly helped me as a player.
Mate, the Shed, you get so much energy from the Shed, don't you, man? What a spot.
The Shed, mate, they love it down there. They proper love the rugby. They know how to get behind their team, for sure. So, definitely better to be playing for Gloucester rather than against them when you're down there.
Yeah, and how do you find Laurie Fisher, coach? I've always been intrigued by. Heard some good stories about him in the past, and I'm sure you've got a couple of good ones.
The Lord, mate. The Lord Laurie. He's a good man, huh? Like, great. Obviously a different character. Yeah. A man to himself, as you probably know. I think he's just one of the great characters in the game. Like, real sort of technical coach. But certainly really out there. He just loves the game of rugby. Absolutely loves code. Watches a lot of it. But real passionate about the game. Real technical around the sort of forwards. He was quite funny because he was quite blasé about that in terms of, he's like, yeah, mate, I just look after the forwards. He's like, you'll need to speak to somebody else about any of that sort of back stuff. I'm just here to worry about the forwards, but you boys sort of crack on out the back there.
So throughout your career, were you always sort of driving the game plans? Were you always that sort of player where you had a big influence on what the team were running?
Yeah, mate, I did like that side of it, as I sort of touched on a little bit before, and around that sort of thinking side of the game. I always tried to, think about it and, be as positive as you can be. I never never wanted to play in one of the teams that just kick all the time, but, there's a fine balance, when to kick, when to run, and, it's just putting the good practices into the team and almost putting that mindset into the team. That's what I always, found the best teams I was involved with. It's almost like a sense of everybody's on that same page, mate. And as I'm sure you'll be finding in coaching stuff as well, it's just that collective mindset, in many ways. And if I was captain or one of the game drivers, trying to sort of lead on that and bring other people into that sort of decision-making process.
So then why the move to France and Clermont? I know they love a goal-kicking nine over there, so was that a big part of it, obviously?
Yeah.
A few Euros thrown at you?
Yeah, mate, the Euros were nice as well, mate. It's a short career, mate, and it's a tough one, but I was really close to staying at Gloucester, to be honest, because I really did enjoy my time down there. But again, like everything else, mate, it's an opportunity, and I think because of my competitive nature, I had something in the back of my mind that I would love to have played in France. There'd been a few Scottish guys that had done it sort of over their career, and I'd probably spoken to them and asked them, about it. And I think because I had access to it, we would be able to watch it on the TV, and it was a great spectacle as well. And I was speaking to Toulon as well at the same time as Clermont, which would have been like, from a lifestyle perspective, I think my wife was more keen to go to Toulon, to be honest, mate. But like for me, at the time, they were owned by a guy who was notoriously fairly loose, shall we say, in terms of around some of the things he was doing, and I just didn't feel it was like a good fit for me as a team. So I've absolutely no regrets signing for Clermont. I talked before about, that not old school, but like, I guess the town, like getting behind the rugby club and supporting them. And Stade Marcel Michelin, mate, down there in Clermont, when it's full, there's no better place to play rugby, I would argue. Like, unbelievable supporters, right behind their team, and I had some great memories from down there.
Yeah, you mentioned like in Gloucester, the crowd being unreal, those fans being noisy, but the French, the French are a whole new level.
Mate, they are. It's like I talked about match day a little bit before in terms of that Scotland stuff, but the match day in Clermont, mate, you'd like I think we used to meet up like 5 or 6 hours before kickoff. You do a little walk through on the field, and then we'd just walk over to a hotel kind of behind the stadium, and then when it was, whatever, an hour 20 minutes before kickoff, you'd always walk over from the hotel to back to the stadium. And by this point, mate, like the crowd, they were there, mate. They were in place, like lining the streets. The French band were going, and it just like the atmosphere, just from like the minute you walked out of the hotel, mate, it was like, I've got to get going tonight because these guys, they're going to tell us if we're not on. So yeah, we're in. You don't lose too many games at home in France, and we had a pretty good record in Clermont there.
Yeah, no, and just even watching La Rochelle in the weekend, like the crowds that they bring once they've won the competition, it's just amazing seeing how many people turn up to, something like that, a winning parade.
Man, they're almost like football fans in many senses, but in terms of that sort of real sort of cultural connection with their team. Like as you said, like even I was watching the La Rochelle game there and I was just like, bloody hell, like how good, like getting pumped, like the flares going off, the whole shebang. And La Rochelle is actually a great place to go and play. You've probably seen some of the celebrations and stuff down in the port there as well. It's like a quiet little town on the seaside, but they come to life for the rugby, so they've got a great thing going down there.
Yeah, incredible. So then the last move in your career to Japan. Why Japan? Obviously, you've seen most of the world. Obviously, you never got to Super Rugby, but was it just to tick off one last country and one more experience, or the yen?
Well, the yen's not doing so well at the minute, I'm afraid, mate.
Oh, is it not? Is it
I needed
crashed,
to pick up.
is it?
The whole economy is struggling here, mate.
Oh no, hold on.
Yeah. What brought me to Japan? Like I never had a thing in my mind to say, look, I want to play in England, France, Japan. That was never me. I never tick off countries as such. I just, I don't know, the opportunity, I guess. Again, I was in France. I was enjoying France. I had an option to stay, not with Clermont, but with a different team. And yeah, I think, careers are short, mate. And that's probably one that I really sort of thought, listen, I've got this opportunity now. At the time it was for 2 years. Obviously, I've got kids and stuff at the time, so you speak to your wife. You say, look, shall we take on this challenge? And fortunately for me, my wife's always been really great around that stuff, and so she says, listen, why don't we do it? It's a great opportunity, great life experience, and that was probably the one thing really in the end is that life experience. Come and do something different and then go from there.
Yeah, well, it's pretty cool that you can look back on your career and, you experience living in 4 different countries, playing professional rugby in some of the best competitions in the world, and, just had one hell of a career. So advice for someone who's looking to go overseas, where would you sort of rank them in terms of going to the URC, English Premiership, French Top League, or Japan? Like, give us the pros and cons of sort of each competition from your perspective.
Right, okay, that's a good question. Let's start in Japan, I guess, since I'm here. I think, once you're here in Japan, I think a great life experience. Obviously, completely different. The rugby is still young and progressing the way the system works. So there's some frustrations around that, but come in with your eyes open. That's probably a generalization for all of them. Expect it to be different because it's probably going to be. And if you expect to, move somewhere else and it's going to be the same, then they're the guys that probably don't last. So Japan's awesome, mate. It's great fun. Seasons are shorter, and it's a great country with great people. I think if you're going to let's say a France or probably France and English Premiership, we'll put them together. You got to be more mentally ready, I reckon, for the length and almost the slog of it. Certainly in France, it's hard work. Week in, week out, you got to win games. Going away from home where the home team's expected to win, especially in France. long bus trips, potentially to games and stuff like that. So you prepare yourself mentally to do that. Try and speak the language. Definitely in France, like that's big culturally for them. They'll put up with you for a little bit, but if you don't start to try and speak a bit of French, mate, they'll soon get sick of you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that, again, the English Premiership probably falls under the same sort of mentality. You got to turn up physically each week, etc. And I think the big one with the URC, it's probably a younger competition as well. Since the South African teams have joined, but the thing you got to factor in there, I guess, is like the travel. Like once you're there, so if you're going across with family or whatever, you're over to Italy one week, you're over to South Africa, down to Wales. So there's a fair bit to it. There's a lot of moving parts. Whereas I guess once you're in England, France, or Japan, you're sort of in country. And that's you're kind of set, so you're gone for game day, but you're never going for too long,
Mate, that is great intel for anyone who's looking for an overseas experience, because it's a question I get asked all the time, like, where do I think I should go? Like, I'm young or I'm older. What do you think's the best option for me? And, mate, you've summed them up beautifully. So what was your favourite one to play in when you look back on? What was your favourite years of your career?
France, mate.
France.
Yeah, France. Yeah, and not because any of the other ones have been bad, but just like good club, great competition, good players at the time when I was down in Clermont. Whether it's French guys, foreigners, guys like Nick Benderin, Ice Toyava.
Oh yeah.
He was probably one of the best players I've ever played with. Actually, he was unbelievable.
Oh wow.
Yeah, mate, he was unreal. If he was fit. That was Ice's problem. He struggled with his body a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, mate, when he played for us, mate, like everybody else was so much more confident because he was that good.
True. Well, is that fitness because of injuries or fitness because, just unfit conditioning wise?
Nah, he struggled with his body ice. I think he'd had a few knee sort of hip issues as well. So, and he's obviously like a power sort of speed player as well. So you know what the problems are like. But
yeah. Mate,
he liked a good time as well, mate. Right enough.
Oh, you two would have got along just well then. Also, when you look back on your career, what sort of made you the player you were, you think? Like, obviously you've spoken about the top 2 inches, but you look back on your career, how do you sort of feel about it?
Mate, I think, I guess my sort of inner drive to make myself better. That was probably the big one for me in a nutshell. Really, it was. I was competitive, but I wanted to be the best version of myself. In many ways, and whether that was down in Gloucester, and I think that because some people can stay at one club, and I've got real admiration for people that can do that to keep mentally fresh. But the sort of move really helped me because you almost have to. Prove yourself again to like a different peer group, a different group of players, people.
Yeah.
Like so, I found that real beneficial. I don't know what you found, moving clubs, but I found that real beneficial to me.
Mate, I was the exact same. It feels like you've got to sort of earn that respect again from everyone, eh? Like you can't just sort of rest on what you've done in the past and start fresh, mate. That's a good point. But anyway, I've got about 1,000 questions come in for you from the Instagram. You're a popular man, especially from some of the kilted Kiwis. So we'll try and get through a few of these before we wrap this up. But
here we go.
Stuff. Okay. Why do they call you Darren?
I wonder who asked that. It could be a few guys. Mate, so... I guess once I've had a couple of beers, mate, I do like to enjoy myself. Put it, as much as I can. So, not that I talked about being an introvert before. So maybe Darren's not so much of an introvert, mate. He likes to chat. I get a smile on his face, so and have a couple of beers. So
an introvert till he's had a few drinks.
Yeah, that's it, mate.
So what's Darren mean though?
Oh, mate, it was a name that came out of Edinburgh. It was just something ridiculous at the time. There was a couple of guys up in Edinburgh. I don't even know, actually. There was somebody that there was a couple of people that called Darren. And then eventually it just sort of come to me after I had a couple of beers, and that was it, mate. It sort of grew from there out of nowhere, really.
Now does everyone call you Darren? Like,
Not well. After this, mate, they probably will. But
oh, that's good stuff. Oh, I love a good weird nickname. Okay, next one. How much did you charge? How much did you charge Lance for your kicking sessions?
oh, mate, that's obviously came out of Gloucester. You've been speaking to some of the Gloucester.
Oh, this
boys,
one came
mate.
from my brother. He told me the story. I haven't
Yeah.
stopped laughing since.
Oh, mate, that was a good one. Oh, mate, so Lance Bradley is now the chief exec actually down in Gloucester now. Who wasn't at the time. He was chief exec of Mitsubishi, who are the main title sponsor of Gloucester.
Oh, yeah.
And then Lance, he like never played rugby, like straight out of the office job. Man, he's come to me one day. He's like, "Oh, Greg, I need to like learn how to kick." And I was like, "What do you mean you need to learn how to kick?" And he's like, so it turns out he's playing in this like charity game down in Gloucester, mate. And he's asked me like for a few kicking lessons.
How old is he?
Oh, like, I don't know, 50-ish. He's great businessman. Yeah, but he's like literally never picked up a ball, mate. And then so the first day he's come down to the training ground in Gloucester, mate, and the boys are like, "What are you up to?" And I was like, "I've got Lance I'm going to take him kicking." And the boys are like, "What are you on about?" So I've explained that. Next minute, mate, I'm out in the field and I can see the boys like they're all like sort of peeking out the changing rooms and stuff, mate. They were taking the piss out of me for a while for that one, mate.
Did you teach him how to kick? How did he go?
He went all right, mate. He kicked a few in the charity match. I went along to watch him, mate. So he done all right, mate. But he was pretty kind to me, mate. He was head of Mitsubishi down there, so he looked after me. Put it that way,
mate. That's why you got into coaching, because you turned a normal office man into world class goal kicker. Oh, they're in good. The Shining Arcs are in good hands next year with that. What a start. Okay, next one. Give us your best Laurie Fisher impression. You spoke about him before. Obviously a great man.
Oh, mate. Laurie's, mate, give him the Elvis Chase connection. Eliminate numbers. What else did he like? Kill a threat. That was his big one, Laurie, mate. Give him the Elvis Chase connection.
Mate, that is a good Aussie accent. You've obviously spent a lot of time in Aussies.
Yeah, I probably have over the years, mate. But that was Laurie's big one, mate. He liked to get on the overs, mate, and chase connections at ruck time. So there's my Lord impression.
Oh, mate, that is good. Oh, Laurie Fisher, legend. Okay, next one. Have you seen Craig Joubert after that Rugby World Cup quarter final? You said he obviously sprint off after the game. Have you caught up with him afterwards, or have you ever had a conversation with him?
Yeah, mate, we did. So I think it was maybe the preceding Six Nations. Sorry, it must have been the Six Nations after. Yeah, clearly. He came in. He was running the touch for Scotland v Ireland, I think it was, over in Dublin.
Oh, yeah.
And he asked, because Vern Cotter VC was the head coach at the time, and Vern was still the coach for the following Six Nations, and Vern sort of said to me, "Listen, Craig Joubert's asked to come in and come and speak to us." So Vern and myself, we went to speak to him. He came to meet us in the hotel, and we had a sort of chat about it, and he sort of said, "Look, sorry for." He was apologising for more sort of running off the field and stuff. So respect to him for that, and that's all you can do. But mate, I tell you one thing, he's a brave man coming in to meet VC. He's a scary customer, Big Vern, that was for sure.
Oh, that is good. Because you're apparently pretty intimidating to referee as well. What did I see the other day? Was it JP Doyle or one of the refs over there mentioned that you being the most intimidating player to ref out of everyone he's ever refed? Where does that come from? No wonder Joubert ran off. He's scared of you, mate. They all are.
Yeah, he didn't want it, mate. He just left. I've seen that about JP actually, but mate, I think he's working for Scottish Rugby, so maybe somebody paid him off, mate, to say that about me. I don't know, but again, mate, I think over the years, again, I've definitely mellowed, and but just that, like, will to win, push the boundaries. And it's funny because, like, you see it on bloody social media these days, and in terms of people getting slagged for speaking to refs and this and that. But mate, what people forget is the guys that are playing the game are competitors. Yeah, and they put so much emotional energy and so much energy into games of rugby. Sometimes things spill over, and it's just part of it. And 9 times out of 10 after the game, most boys will be all good with the ref and stuff like that. So it's part of the game. But I think, and most of it's done with enough respect, in my opinion.
Mate, sounds like a true referee serial abuser.
You could, mate, just as well I can't speak Japanese. It's the standard up here, mate.
Oh yeah, mate. Oh mate, that one. Oh, there's some absolute shockers. I'm pretty sure they're just making it up. They're almost making it up on the spot. But yeah, that's a good place to go learn some respect for some referees, isn't it?
It is, mate.
Okay, next one. What's it like playing the All Blacks and facing the haka?
Fantastic experience. Obviously, it's very unique. You got the haka. I think culturally, it's obviously a huge part of the All Blacks of New Zealand. And I think it's always felt really, really privileged, to stand in front of it and really challenged as well. I think I spoke briefly before about, whether it's playing in New Zealand. I think it's, in terms of that rugby side, it's one of the biggest, or the biggest challenges out there in rugby. So yeah, I always felt real privileged to stand in front of it and have the opportunity to test myself against, for the most part, the best team in the world.
Is it intimidating watching it, or are you just more getting energy from it, or are you actually watching them thinking, "Oh shit, these guys are on"?
Yeah, well, it's not. Listen, it's not intimidating, but I think you can almost not feel the energy, but you can see the energy that the All Blacks can pick up of it. Because it's culturally it's connected, to the jersey, to the to the history of that jersey. So I think they obviously, it's a strong part of who they are as people and as a team. So there's definitely an energy around it and a sort of aura. And I think even in the stadiums as well, I think it's great when the sort of crowd are quiet and you can really hear it as well. I think it really adds to the spectacle.
Oh mate, look, good answer. Okay, what's your favourite part about rugby union?
Oof. The people, probably, mate. Yeah, I think there's tough times definitely, but there's good times as well. But I think through it all, mate, when you think back, and you're probably the same. It's a lot of times you don't remember the games, but you certainly remember the people, the characters.
Yeah.
Whether that's a John Hardy or whatever, somebody always springs to mind.
Yeah.
So definitely the people for me.
Mate, 100%, and especially someone like you who's been to so many different teams and experienced so many different cultures. You would have met so many people, and rugby's such a small world or community, isn't it? You meet people who know people, and just one big, sort of community that basically everyone from one person removed, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, next one. Most of the listeners will be wanting to know about this one. Favourite night out. Greig Laidlaw's favourite night out. Jeez. So many to choose from.
Yeah, there's been a couple of good ones over the years, mate. I talked about having fun with Finn earlier on. And yeah, that was one that, obviously, I don't know if you've seen that one, but I ended up getting caught, well, not caught on video, but on video, and tearing my shirt off after we beat England in 2018 after the Calcutta Cup, mate. And I was in a bit of a mess, mate, to say the least. But so what actually happened was we were out as a team, and it was actually Finn's girlfriend, Emma. She's put a story up on her Instagram or whatever, and obviously everybody's been pretty well on, mate. Went to bed, woke up in the morning, and Finn's checking his Instagram, and he said to his missus, "Oh, you better take that down. Greg's there, he's got his shit, or he looks pretty pissed." So she's whipped it down, mate, but it's been too late. It was gone. It's like wildfire. Now the best part about that is I was playing in Clermont at the time, and the game was on the Saturday, so that was the Saturday night. The Sunday, I was like so rough. I was meant to be flying back to France. I had to get back to Clermont, but my flight was cancelled for whatever reason. So I was like, oh, happy days, I'll just chill here. And so I flew back on the Monday morning. But the Monday morning, I was with Rachel and the kids, and because Saturday night and the Sunday, like none of it was in the papers.
Yeah.
But then, because it was then Monday morning, it was a day later. Mate, I was on the front of the newspaper, and the headline was "shirt-faced." Well, obviously my shirt's off rather than shit-faced. But I'm sort of like, and then the kids, Rachel, are here, and I'm like sort of ushering the kids past all the newspaper stands in the bloody airport, trying to get on the plane back to France.
Mate, that is crazy.
There was one fella, he come up to me in the airport, it's quite funny, and he sort of had the paper folded over and he sort of slipped it under me. He's like, "You wouldn't sign that, would you?" So I signed it and off he went.
Oh, mate, how did you feel when that was going on? Did that actually absolutely like break you, or was it just more of a bit more of a laugh, or was it pretty intense when you're going through it?
Oh, mate, I was pretty nervous, mate, because obviously I was, captain of Scotland at the time, and obviously you're definitely a role model and stuff. But I think we'd just beaten England, won the Calcutta Cup, so if ever I was going to be shown a little bit of leeway, mate, that was when it was. So thankfully everybody took it what it was. I think we were singing "Flower of Scotland" and had a fair few too many, mate. But it was certainly a good night out, anyway, that's for sure.
Just a normal night for you, mate. Okay, next one. Toughest setback of your career, and how did you overcome it?
I've not had too many injuries, which has been helpful. I got left out of the Scotland World Cup squad in 2011.
Oh yeah.
And I was obviously younger, and I think I'd only been capped by Scotland at the time on a couple of occasions. But at the time, like I felt as though I was like training the house down. Sort of really sort of coming into my own and gaining a bit of confidence, a bit of momentum, and they chose to go in a different direction. Chose different halfbacks. So I found that really difficult to take at the time because I was sort of pushing through into that team, and felt as though I probably should have been selected. So that was a real sort of kick in the teeth for me at the time. So I guess it wasn't like a real line in the sand, but I think I sort of went away and I thought, right, sort of how does this sort of thing never happen again, and how do I make sure I can get into the team going forward? So I went away, worked on a few things, and after that World Cup, that was when I sort of pushed into the team. So hopefully from the tough times, as long as you're learning and there's always a sort of why behind it, you can see the sort of positives and take the good things out of it, hopefully.
Why do you think you didn't have many injuries? Was there anything that you did that you felt like helped you not get injured as much? Because obviously some guys have a brutal run of injuries, but you obviously were pretty lucky from that point of view.
Yeah, I was, mate. Listen, luck's a bit to do with it. It's certainly part of it, but I was pretty professional. I did like a good time as well, but only at the right times. And I think that was sort of as you get older, and if you want to become a leader, you got to set examples as well. So that was something I was real sort of wary of, and around my professionalism, my preparation. All the small things off the field that nobody really sees, whether that's your prehab. We joked about the gym before, but your gym work and all that sort of stuff. So I did take that seriously as well, and really sort of prepare myself, because it's a professional world we're in now, mate. And you've got to, if you want to, be in that sort of top percentile, you got to do all that stuff behind the scenes.
Nice. Okay, 2 more questions. Best player he's ever played with?
Oh yeah.
So many.
Yeah. Well, mate, I'm at the same team at the moment as Israel Folau here in Japan.
Yeah.
He's pretty special, mate, in terms of like an athlete, and like his ability to in the air specifically is something to behold. So he's definitely up there. But
Mate, you'll just be putting box kicks up for him, won't you, over there?
yeah, that's it, man. That's 90% of the game plan that you've got to set. So he definitely up there, but potentially Ice Toyava,
Oh,
mate.
yeah.
He was like, as I said, when he was fit, mate, like anything he touched, he was electric. Like he had it all. He could, run, pass, kick, offload, step, and he was aggressive as well. So he had the whole package, mate. So I reckon if a fully fit Ice, I reckon would probably just get my vote. But I've been lucky enough to play with a lot of good guys over the years, mate.
Yeah, mate, that's interesting. Obviously, he was thrown into the All Black jersey at a young age and never really, I guess, took his opportunity in the All Black jersey for whatever reason. But obviously, such a special talent and has gone so well since he's gone over to France and had some great years for the Blues as well. But shame we never really got to see that on the international stage, because he could have, like you said, absolutely dominated the international scene.
Yeah, shame. He actually played for New Zealand on when I won my first cap for Scotland as well.
True.
So yeah, which I never knew at the time, but looking back, Ice was there.
He's on the program. Yeah, good. Okay, last question. Ask everyone this one. One piece of advice you have for a Woodlad listener. You've given some goal kicking advice. You've given all sorts of good advice, but this one, what are you going to give?
Well, it's pretty simple, but don't give up in terms of if you've got a dream or a focus point in mind, whatever you want to call it, chase it down. Like just don't let it go. I think that was me in many ways in terms of briefly talked there about being left out of the Scotland squad and heading to that World Cup, and my ambition was to play for Scotland, go to World Cups. So I kind of I could have sat back then and almost let it go and said I've not done it, or you really grit the teeth, go and chase it down. That'd be my piece of advice. Don't give it up. If you really want it, go and get it and make it happen.
Mate, what a piece of advice, and what a coach you're going to be. Look, being able to give that sort of advice to players every single day, mate, you're going to be one of the greatest coaches ever.
I don't know about that, mate, but we'll see. We'll see how we go.
Hey, mate, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, giving up your time. True Scottish legend. First time I've met you, but, mate, it feels like I've known you for ages for some reason. You're someone I feel like I need to have a few beers with at some point in my life, and look forward to that day. But looking forward to obviously following your coaching career. Followed your rugby career with interest, and obviously you're a true legend of the game. So awesome having you on the podcast, mate.
Mate, it's been a pleasure, and hopefully I can get down to New Zealand at some point, either catch up with Clarky, and if I do, I'll give you a shout, definitely.
Mate, absolute lad, legend.